welcome to Don't Be a Dick, the podcast. I'm Lindsay Mattis. I am an author. I am a speaker. I am the president and founder of Kinder HR. And I am an HR mama bear.
And I'm her daughter, Ivie. I'm a small-town volunteer and activist. I'm a queer, leftist, anti-fascist, witchy, nerdy, all-around weirdo. And together we're on a journey to navigate this messy world with kindness, empathy, and laughter.
So what's our topic today, Ivie?
Today we're going to be talking about the holidays.
My favorite time of year.
Yay! Yeah. And we're going to talk about navigating capitalism and money around the most capitalistic time of the year, unfortunately.
Right? And we were supposed to record on Thanksgiving for everyone, but technical difficulties, it's fine. It's still Thanksgiving weekend.
And to be fair, this isn't coming out till December anyways.
Good point. I thought we talked about, though, we were going to say it was Thanksgiving we were recording. But
No, yeah, we can say that. No, I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't mean to shoot you down.
It's fine. It's fine.
I just mean that the people don't need to know that I'm going to stop.
Where I was going is, so it is the weekend of the Thanksgiving holiday, and we are still in the economic blackout that was scheduled and planned from November 25th to December 2nd. And it's interesting because it's been harder than I thought.
Do you want to go into more detail about that? What's been so hard?
Commercialism is the beauty of this weekend, right? Like in the past, especially when you were younger, like Black Friday shopping was how I afforded most of your gifts. Santa just, he could only afford the toys. Anyway, yeah, so, and it became like a ritual for our family. Now, over the years, that has changed significantly. So in some ways, it's just easy because now I don't have to leave the house. But there was something very exciting for me. Not everybody. There were bad experiences and people were assholes, right? They were dicks left and right. But we always went into it. I always went into it with oh my God, it's 5 a.m. We are all on the same mission. Let's laugh and have a good time about it instead of shoving each other across to say $2. Like,
yeah. And it was fun. Like, I remember us, like, camping out at Walmart and, like, playing cards, like, until, like, they opened up, the shopping and let us all go crazy, and us just sitting in a big group of people with our whole family and even strangers, like, playing games and having fun. Like, it felt like a midnight showing for a movie a little bit.
That's right. That was that was a really fun year, and it was one where things were changing. So I think it was the first year that Walmart was open all night, so you didn't have to get out and stand in the cold. So we decided to go over there at like midnight, and we took all you kids. Well, those of you that were old enough to know that if you got the exact same gift that we picked up on Black Friday, but it said Santa, you understood that concept.
But you still tried to be sneaky about it. Like, I still remember you, like, sending me into the Care Bears to go grab a Care Bear for Emma that she wasn't allowed to know, and then hide it in the cart.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Like, you were sneaky about it. Like, you didn't just, like, give away what everyone was getting because we happened to be there on Black Friday.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Because I was trying. But yeah, there was, and on Thanksgiving Day, we all met at Grandma's house, and we as the adults, my sisters and I, we would sit down and go through the ads, the newspaper. I don't know who remembers the newspaper, but once upon a time it was a thing you held in your hand. And we went through all the ads and we circled, and it's like, okay, this is at this, and they open at this time, and it was this huge coordinated event, and that was part of the joy. Even though it was commercialized, there was the camaraderie of working together to, I don't know, it was very fun. But it has also been so freeing not to feel like I have to go out and get a bunch of stuff, because it's 20% cheaper today than it's going to be the rest of the season, which we've come to realize is so untrue. Right? They
No,
just pick another day.
and like at this point, Black Friday sales start November 1st and go through the end of December. So it's not really the same tradition, anyways, where it's like you have 3 hours to get everything you need. But also, I think that like we should have a conversation about like why is it important that like even if we have nostalgia and like big feelings about these traditions, why why do we need to pull back away from these traditions that are built on consumerism and overconsumption? Um, is using those words giving the game away a little bit?
No, yeah, no, but I think you need to. I would love to have you go through that, because it is absolutely something I have had to learn, again, because there's so much nostalgia and so much habit. And TBH, because there came a time that I stopped trying to buy gifts in advance. That was the day I got your gifts. So having to go back to scheduling and planning, those kinds of things, it's something that I'm having to learn from you as to how and why.
Yeah, so I think it is important to remember a lot of things. First and foremost, that every single thing that you buy, that you own, that you use is going to end up in a landfill one day. And that is kind of a dark position, but it's the reality. It's something that like keeps me up at night, which is that we, especially in the United States, more than any other country in the world, produce a lot of garbage. And the stuff that we produce, that we think like, oh, this is a fun gift, this is a fun little thing, it ends up in landfills, it ends up in the ocean, it ends up piling up in other countries, right? Like a lot of the clothing we buy, clothing that we donate, right? That you wear something, you're like, okay, I'm growing out of this, I don't fit in it anymore. You give it to a thrift store. The vast majority of clothes that you donate end up in the trash. They end up being shipped to foreign countries where like you can look up pictures online of just like piles of old clothes like filling people's like riverways and towns. Like it's actually pretty horrifying. This thing that is this like fun, silly tradition here in the US actually has huge consequences globally. So it's not a sustainable system, as fun and joyful and nostalgic as it may seem. The other thing to remember is that like most of these companies that are putting on these Black Friday sales are are run by evil, terrible people. I think we should do a whole episode about boycotts um, by itself because it is a big topic to be digging into. But to give like a light, like 101 conversation about it is the CEOs of Walmart, of Home Depot, of Target, of Amazon, I'm sure everyone knows, right? These are people who are making massive amounts of profit at the expense of the climate, right? We already talked about the waste and destruction that's going into this. But also, many of the people producing these items, many of the people involved in shipping, are people who are in dangerous, bad situations, people being taken advantage of. We all know the stories about how Amazon employees are treated, right? We all have heard the stories of Target supporting like cutting back DEI because they don't they want to appeal to like right-wing fascists. There's a lot of people in this process before things get to the store, and even the people working at the store, having worked in retail most of my life, are getting stepped on and treated terribly. Like employees working Black Friday, it's not a fun, colorful, celebratory day for them. It is the worst day of the year. It is an absolute nightmare. And for most of these employees, especially once they started expanding to include Thanksgiving, people are being taken from like what's supposed to be, again, we can have a whole conversation about what Thanksgiving is and isn't, but what is in theory a nice day that you're supposed to spend with your family, and they're being pulled to go work at minimum wage in an environment that is increasingly hostile and that is really unpleasant. So there's all these reasons why this tradition is like, yes, there's some parts of it that are so joyful and fun, but we need to look beyond just ourselves and how it affects other things.
So we're bringing it back.
Lots of reasons why we want to be careful with our consumption over the holidays. And we don't want to support these big CEOs who are frankly giving their money to a lot of evil things and who are getting their money on the backs of exploited laborers, right? And I think that it is important to try and navigate, how do we navigate the holidays then if we're not holding like buying or shopping as like the center of our traditions? Like, I think we need to start finding new traditions that can be just as meaningful as like those like Black Fridays with your family, but that maybe have less of a have less widespread consequences, that do less harm, that can have that joy and love without the back end being this overconsumption.
I love that. And I truly think that's what this has done for me personally, is the idea that it's made me more conscious in one, how I spend my money, but also like, why am I spending the money? What's the purpose of this? Is it to try and build a memory, or is it to try and fill a hole? And for me, and I got this from my mother as well, Christmas was very much something about trying to give love physically, like with items, not physically, but with items. And dude, your grandpa was like, I hate this time of year because grandma spends too much. It takes us 4 months to pay it off at the next year. And for what? Well, in 1985, I got a Swatch watch, which was the coolest thing ever. And the biggest item. So on the flip side, when I look back into the 80s, I'm realizing, again, this is off topic because we're talking about not spending money on stuff. Anyway, off topic.
No, you can tell the story. I want to know what a Swatch watch is. I've never heard of this.
Oh, okay. They were these plastic watches that had different colors and designs, and you could mix and match them. They're still a thing. If you go to Swatch Watch, they still exist. But in the 80s, so when I was early 80s, it was Cabbage Patch Doll, your Aunt Julie, literally what went to like 6 different stores to get me a Cabbage Patch Doll the year that they couldn't get them. And it wasn't on Black Friday. She spent that whole holiday season going to stores, and anytime you'd hear this store is going to have one and they're going to release it at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, Julie would take off work and go down there to get me a Cabbage Patch Doll, because that was the biggest thing. And the Swatch watch was the same sort of thing. And they were the expensive toys. You know, we didn't live in a house where we got expensive toys. So I, wanting to fit in and wanting to be just like everybody else, often I think, guilted your grandmother into doing that.
But I think there's a good like nugget there, right? Which is that like when you grow up being poor, we are taught in our country, we are taught in our culture that like poverty and struggling with finances is something to be ashamed of. And how you combat that is consumption, right? Is having the best things, is having the brand name, is having the expensive stuff. And I also like I can see how that affected grandma and her shopping, you know, and her wanting her kids to feel like they weren't poor. And I can see how it affected us growing up. You know, I remember you doing that every Christmas, buying these expensive things. And I think part of the reason why I was like so into Santa as a kid is because I knew we couldn't afford that stuff. And the amount of, once I got old enough, the amount of like guilt that I would feel knowing that like we were struggling financially and you bought me this like expensive thing, actually like it was a hard thing to process. So even though again there is this nostalgia element, there is this like beautiful thing of like your parents, my parents trying to make us feel like wealthier than we actually were. I think again, it's like how do we build a feeling that is beautiful and meaningful in our kids and our families that isn't around wealth and consumption, right? Because ultimately, I don't want to be someone who prides myself on how expensive my stuff is. Sometimes I still am, you know, I still struggle with that where it's like, I'm like super proud. I'm not going to show it right now because my cat hair is all over it. But I have this really nice sectional that my friend gave me, and I feel so excited about it because it's like an adult couch, you know, that it looks like something that would be in someone's nice house instead of, I mean, this was free. However, unlike every other free couch I've had in my life that I found on the side of the road, you know, there is like a point of pride in our stuff, but I think we need to practice finding ways to bring out that pride in other places. Right? Like that I don't have kids, but I want the people in my life, my family, the children that I'm close to feel abundance. I want them to feel abundant and wealthy, but I don't want that to feel like you have to be rich and you have to have a lot of stuff. Right? How do we bring about that feeling in ourselves and the people around us without it being like, I'm just going to buy you a bunch of things and therefore you'll know that you're loved.
I like how you use the word abundance. I think that is a better word. Abundance, I mean, it's kind of what this season is about, right? Like with fall, it's when you bring in the harvest and all those things, and you have to put everything into storage to last you through the winter, right? So abundance is something that historically we've had in the past, but we didn't. But then, you know, the industrial age, people weren't farmers. We didn't have those things. And so how do we go back to that feeling of abundance without it being stuff? Mm-hmm. Right? What was that feeling that we all had? Well, we were all harvesting together, right? So we were coming together. We were spending all this time. There were celebrations of, like, we love celebration. It's give me a holiday every day of the year. I'm a holiday lover. It doesn't matter the holiday. I love a holiday. I love to have a reason to celebrate things. But where do we find the abundance feel that I think we are potentially naturally kind of inclined to feel, with it not feeding the pockets of the billionaires, like you said. And you know, from my HR perspective, Black Friday was also one of those things that I recognized. I had to work in retail. I watched the fact that while consumers were doing their best to fill that void, whatever that was, the employees, it was shitty. The way they're treated, the way that they're overlooked and dismissed, it's shitty. And I guess to wrap in our whole theme is when commercialism, when the holidays become about commercialism, it turns everyone into a dick.
Yeah. And I think we have all these like sort of fairy tale ideas about the holidays being about love and sharing. And so much of them is actually about purchasing. Yeah. And I think but there are holiday traditions that can be about love and sharing, that I think are really lovely. Like, there's so many like food, like you talk about harvest is like, I love our food holiday traditions. Again, we can have a whole conversation about Thanksgiving. Maybe next Thanksgiving we'll have that conversation because it needs its own episode. But like this idea of coming together and sharing a meal. Yes. Okay. We still need to buy food. We still live in a capitalist system. You can't escape the fact you're going to need to purchase things. But being like, these are the foods that we eat at this time. This is like for the like winter holidays, like we're going to make cookies and share it with our neighbors. We're going to like have hot chocolate and like watch a cozy movie or make homemade decorations. These are things that are still privileged. These are things that are still like built into our sort of privileged first world society, but they're on a much lower scale than like, I need to spend $300 today on gifts because if I buy them all next week, it's going to be $1,000, And like, there's so many cool decorations you can make. Being in Oregon, a lot of my friends are like hippies. I say that with love. But like, I see them do these like holiday crafts and things that come from like going out in nature and foraging, which again is easier to do in Oregon than maybe Utah in the winter. But like people finding pine cones, people like drawing flowers in the summer and then using them to like make garlands in the winter. Like there are crafts and things that we can do that are still have that feeling of abundance and joy and magic and your family coming together, but that aren't just shopping.
Right. Well, for years, for 20 plus years, my friends and I have done an ornament exchange. And the rule was that you had to make the ornaments. You couldn't buy them. Now, for many years, we just, because it started, well, your Aunt Linda was the first one who did it in our family, and then I shared it with my coworkers. But we would pass around the Oriental Trainee magazine where you could buy ornament kits and like circle the one you wanted so someone else didn't pick it. But anyway, the joy of taking the moment to think about your friends and spend that time. But most important was when we got together. And every year when we got together, when we showed our ornaments and shared our ornaments, we had to have the story. It was really more about the story behind. And so we still have on our tree ornaments that were made in last century. We have, I guess, are they antiques now? But I see you going, I don't think so.
So here's the thing is I'm getting to that age where people are I'm only 31, but I'm getting to that age where people talk about stuff from like when I was a child as if it's old, and I'm not really ready for that. I'm like, I'm only 31. Can we not talk about the 90s as if it was like 100 years ago?
I, on the other hand, the minute we got into the 2000s, my favorite thing was to shock people by going, Oh, right, that happened last century. Like, I wasn't even born in this century. I'm doing the best I can here.
That makes you
So,
sound like a time traveler.
I know, right? Well, last century, what happened was
Or in a vampire, maybe.
maybe I always wanted to be a vampire, which is a weird thing. I honestly thought I would be, one of the Cullens. I would only eat animals and bad people. From holiday traditions to vampires, how did we
Hey,
get here?
I'm always pro talking about vampires. That's definitely something you passed on. But no, I love it. I love a holiday tradition that's built on the coming together, that's built on the storytelling. It was making me, as you were telling the story of the ornament exchange, it was making me think of a holiday tradition that we had, which is every Christmas Eve we'd go over to Grandma's house, and we would listen to this old recording of Grandma Man reading the Christmas story.
Grandma Haycock was reading the Christmas story.
Haycock, thank you.
Grandma Man was playing the piano.
Grandma Man was playing the piano. My mistake.
No. Yes, if you could remember your great-great-grandmother's name, that'd be great.
Yes, well, and the recording got to the point where you couldn't hear it anymore. But it was like we'd all sit together. We'd all wear our matching jammies, which I realize again is like a consumption thing. But like we do this thing together. We're all dressing up. We're all celebrating together. And then Grandma would give us, like, speaking of like like easy, like create your own gifts. Like the most special gift I remember getting every year was Grandma would give us reindeer food to put out for the reindeers.
That's right.
And it was like usually like oats and glitter. And then she'd just mix in a bag and she'd like print this little card that explains like this is for the reindeer, like put it out on your lawn and they'll eat it while Santa's like filling up your stockings. And like that must have been, like, to put that together, probably incredibly cheap, right? Incredibly easy, like, and so special. Like, so special as a little kid that I, like, every year would, like, you could sit out and, like, look at the yard and wait for the reindeer to come eat these, like, oats and glitter that you put out for them.
And like, flying reindeer don't get sick from glitter.
No, that's in fact where their magic comes from.
This is from
eating glitter, I would think, right?
No. I hear that. I hadn't even put that together, but I think you're probably right.
Yeah. So it was totally, maybe not the most environmental option to throw glitter on your lawn every Christmas, but like, I think that there are simple traditions that we can hold on to like that are still quite beautiful and meaningful. And feel that like abundance and magic without breaking the bank.
I love that. And I love how you're talking about, it being about community, coming together and caring about one another, being the important part. But of course, that is not the only thing. Part of Black Friday is such a big deal for companies because it is a huge boon in their bottom line at the end of the year. So how do we address those things that really we do still to some degree need to purchase things, right? We need to keep the economy flowing, and we can get into a deeper conversation about what that looks like. Okay.
Do we? I don't know. So this is my struggle. Okay. No, sorry.
No. This is good. This is what we do, honey. This is our podcast.
Fair. I'm like getting in my head and I'm sorry. I don't necessarily agree that we need to keep the economy flowing. I think that is an idea that was made up by rich people to keep us spending money and to keep us feeling reliant on them when they do nothing to take care of us. I think it's very Reagan trickle-down economics, like keep the economy running. You have to buy stuff because it's your job to keep these companies functioning. Okay. I think that's bullshit. However, I do think that many of us still have traditions that involve money and spending money. We still have to spend money. We still live in a capitalist society. We still function. And like, maybe you still want to get gifts for your family on Christmas. You know, like, I'm not saying like never buy anything ever again, throw all shopping out the window. You know, like, if giving gifts on Christmas is very meaningful to you, that's a tradition that I think it's okay to keep, but I think we need to think about it as ethically as possible, right? Which is one, like, I don't think that you need to get a million things. And this is easy for me to say because I don't have kids. But even as a kid, like, I don't think I needed as many gifts as I got. As much as I could feel they came from a place of love, as special as it was waking up to a bunch of presents on Christmas, I think that so much of the magic of the holiday wasn't necessarily opening up 200 boxes, you know? And that, like, we can make things a little smaller, we can get a little less. And I think when we're shopping and thinking about gifts for each other, shop locally, you know? Support your local businesses. Like, I don't want to keep the economy running in, like, big letters, but, like, I want to support my local business owners, you know? I want to get gifts from people that I know are like me, that are trying to make a living, that are struggling to survive, and that maybe are putting out a product that has a little more thought and heart into it than Walmart or Target, where they're mass producing this stuff. And look, I know a lot of local business owners, they're still getting a lot of stuff from China, you know, like, but they're more hand thought out. They're more picked by the owners of their business, and more of that money is going into my community and people that I know and am connected to. So I'm all for shopping at small businesses. I think, like we talked about, like, making gifts, that's hard for some people. That takes a lot of work and energy. But, like, making cookies for your coworkers instead of, like, buying a bunch of different things, or, you know, making, like, small little things that you can hand out, making cards. I do a lot of card making, and it's a really fun craft that people really appreciate. I think there's a lot of stuff like that you can do. There was something you were talking about that I really loved that I wanted to jump back into, which is you were talking about coming together, and that what really matters is, like, telling the story. And I just was really moved when you were saying that, because I just feel like what is a more natural, long-lasting human tradition than storytelling? Like, that is something that humans have done across every culture as long as we've existed. And that, like, for something like, what are our winter traditions in this time when it's cold and dark and we're all huddled together, you know, is like telling stories and sharing in each other's time and thoughts, and the magic of Santa, you know, or Christmas, or whatever winter tales and stories that we like to tell, and myths that we buy into, I think is a very beautiful thing to share together.
I like that. Yeah, I guess that's the kind of abundance that we need versus consumption abundance. Lots of pretty gifts under the tree and all of those things, but I love what you said about the stories being the most powerful gift we can give, right? It's really talking about that. So, you know, I think what we've been discussing is the fact that really the holidays are about coming together, right? It's about our relationships with one another. It's about finding that community, which really brings up this another situation, which is how, in a time when the world is so divided, and that comes all the way down to people that you love and people that you care about, how do we navigate holding on to that community, but being honest and authentic about what we believe and who we are?
And I think that is a huge topic that is so important to have right now. And we will be discussing in our next episode. So listen in 2 weeks.
For part 2 of surviving the holiday season with kindness, right?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Surviving the holiday season with kindness, empathy, and living as ethically as you can in our capitalistic
Right.
world. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And please tune in a few weeks for our next episode. In the meantime, follow us. Mom, where can people follow you?
At my website, lindsaymattis.com.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Please tune in a few weeks for our next episode about navigating family and differing opinions during the holidays. In the meantime, you can follow us. Mom, where can everybody follow you?
You can follow me on YouTube at Lindsay Mattis. Facebook, I'm Lindsay Mattis. On Instagram, I'm Mama Mattis. And for TikTok, you can find me at HRMama6. What about you, Ivy? Where can we find you?
Awesome. You can find me on TikTok at Dandelion Waiting. Mom also has a website you can go to if you would like to purchase a copy of her book, Don't Be a Dick. And her website we will put in the show notes. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we hope you have a wonderful day. We will see you soon.
And as always, be kind. But if you can't be kind,
At least don't be a dick.
goodbye, everyone.